let's see.
Just put it in the universe.
This
Yeah,
definitely
maybe one of the best movies of the year.
It's like I don't know if you mentioned.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned maybe earlier something about like maybe not winning an Oscar or something because Oscars
say
aren't
like
really
genre
good
isn't
because the
really-
genre,
Mhm.
horror. But I mean, it's happened before for horror, so it'd be
Yeah.
interesting.
So we're talking about none other than the movie Sinners that just came out a week and a half ago, and it's taken the box office by storm. Everyone on social media is talking about it. So of course, Seen Through Us, we have to talk about it. So once again, I'm your girl Linz, my boy Aaron Davon, and we are joined by our boy Mac, who's usually behind the scenes, behind the camera, and then our homie Cairo.
Hey.
Really quick, Cairo, let the people know like what you do, like because you know this music stuff.
Yeah, so I just happen to be a music professional for over a decade, management, publishing, and music distribution. So I kind of sit on the side of supporting dope artists, helping them dreams come to life.
Awesome. And I think he was one of the like between him and Mac, like being two creatives and somebody that knows music, two awesome guests to talk about this movie because it's so music centered. And we talk about the music, we talk about the cultural significance, we talk about spiritual significance, we talk about it all. So we hope you guys enjoy this episode of Seen Through Us. Here we go. Guys, so I think we are all sinners here at this table.
I sinned last night.
You sinned last night? When did you sin?
I sinned this afternoon.
Oh,
Early.
Aaron.
Sinned last week.
And I sinned on shit. When did we watch that? Sorry, we are obviously
she don't remember her
talking-
sins.
So I'm going to drop the act. We obviously are talking about the movie Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler, his first original screenplay. I mean, can we just go around the table and talk about our maybe one sentence thoughts on the movie?
Ooh, one sentence
Yeah, I was like,
Okay,
one
hold
sentence.
on.
I eat two.
Brief thoughts before we get deep into it.
I'm thinking too deep. I don't know.
There it is.
Totally.
Thinking too deep.
You want me to go?
Yeah, go for it.
I'll say just pretty much visually immaculate, just visually and just, I think all senses, if you went to go see it in the theater in IMAX in Dolby, which I did, is like everything was like, wow, like picture, music, everything was hitting me. And so it was kind of like an overload, but I was taking it in.
Uh-huh.
So I'd say an overload of somewhat.
Uh-huh. Cairo?
I would say telling the whole story. I kind of feel like the movie really went into context more about just like surface level history, but more into like really what was going on in the ground.
Uh-huh.
In addition to, we invite energy into our space.
Wow.
And that's our responsibility, is whatever energy we invite, whether good or bad.
That's a dope takeaway. My thoughts on the movie was it was a lot. I mean, it was a sensory overload. But it left me wanting more. So
Yeah.
movies like this, I kind of really love because you're left thinking about it long after you leave the theater and you want to know more. You want to know the whys. Why was this character there? Why is that their background? What is the relationship between these two groups or three groups in this case? So I would say that this was a very unique movie watching experience for me.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, as a visual person, visually looks amazing. Especially a specific scene that I'm sure a lot of people are talking about. Musically as well, incredible soundtrack. And like, I love all the themes that they touched on, also without being very obvious. Or maybe beating your head over, with certain things, and also things that might go over your head unless you're somebody who, has experienced these things or is more familiar with some of these themes. I don't know. I think it was an incredible movie.
What scene are you talking about? Are you talking about the dance scene?
The dance
the
scene.
big music
Yeah, the big
dance
musical
scene?
dance
That was
scene,
like
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
That big montage.
I definitely feel like some people felt like would that scene take you out of the movie? Because it's a very ambitious scene.
It is.
Mhm.
And
Talk
to
about
have
it.
all those different mixtures of music and going into like, one portion is mixing, the Bay Area music to the Chinese and Asian culture to this, to that. And it's like, could that take somebody out of the movie? Like, oh, what's happening? Okay, is this part of the movie? To me, I accept it. I like a filmmaker who's ambitious and who's trying to, and low key, I don't know if that would look like they were trying to make it look like a oneer. Like how
I think
it was going
it
to
seemed
a
like it
Wonder, wasn't
was.
it?
Yeah, I think it
And
was.
so just the ambition of that, the music ambitiously showing, how music can go over generations from history to the past and also to the future.
Mhm.
I think it was very ambitious, but a lot of people talked about that scene. Some people felt, oh, that kind of took me out of it. And some people was like, oh, it put me even more into it.
Mhm.
How did you guys feel about the scene?
That was a very polarizing scene in the movie for sure. Because I mean, looking at the comments online, you either loved it or you hated it.
Yeah.
You either got sold because of that scene or you like checked out because of that scene. I think when it was first happening, I was like, whoa, what's going on? But then you kind of like really had to pay attention. You got to look and listen to what's going on because the narrator, I forgot her name in the movie, the magic lady.
Magic Lady.
You
I'm
know?
forgetting her name too.
Yeah.
But she was like the narrator. So she narrated in the beginning and she was narrating during that big musical number, talking about past and present and going through generations and like the music kind of speaking and traveling through generations in time. And I was like, yes, I love this. And it kind of helped tie in the very last scene in the movie or the mid-credit scene at the end of the movie. It tied that in because you did get a time jump at the end. So I happen to personally love it. At first I was confused, but then I looked and listened and I absorbed it and I was like, I kind of love this.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. What I got from it was music is a universal language, and it was really shown that this music stands through time periods, but also cultural changes as well. When you saw everyone use music in their own way, whereas every different culture in that music scene, nothing was the same. You had the Native Americans, you had the Africans, you had the Asians, you had the young, the old, and you saw all of this, and it was the same exact message, music. And it made everyone dance, everyone move the same purpose.
Same rhythm.
So you have a bunch of people in a space that live different lives, different languages, but the music makes you do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Right? So I thought that was a great way to just show that at the end of the day, this is like our water hole, that we all come together and we can enjoy music together, even if we don't speak the same language. Because it started with the blues, Sammy singing and playing the blues, and then the music continued to play, overlapping other music, and it's kind of stayed in that same frequency a little bit.
Yeah.
Where it didn't sound like it was clashing.
Exactly.
Even when the genres changed, it still kind of felt the same.
It all blended.
Right?
Yeah.
And it tells you there is one like singular sound that all music sits in. And I think that's what that scene really showed.
Also all the blending, I guess, the music too, but also just seeing through time, it's like you see the echoes of culture and like even the activities, the dancing, everybody just, drinking, having fun, people there gambling. There's like, it's like not, it's like everything through time like changes, but it's still echoes of the same, like enjoyment, like the unity, the
influence.
Yeah.
The influence.
Through the different periods of people. Right? You can see like, oh, this is where hip hop came from. You can see how it transcends from different eras in time and different places in the world, and then it gets around and you're like, oh, that was done 400 years ago in this part of the country. And now we can see how it somehow got to today and where it is.
We're still doing,
and we're still
essentially
doing something of it. Some section.
Yeah, I think definitely big. Just to go on both of you guys' point, right? It's about them making this juke joint, right? And bringing the community, everybody together for all this music. And then you think about it, like you guys saying, over the time, we're kind of still doing the thing. We're still going to the house party. Who's DJing the music? Oh, you bringing games? Who's bringing dominoes? Who's bringing the barbecue? Who's bringing food? And like same thing. Who's bringing the catfish? You know, who's playing cards out in the back? You know, and so it's like, even though we've gone 20, 100 years further, or it's still the same thing, you know, we're still listening to some form of that music, some form of it. And also we're still having those community ties where we're all coming together to have this one, to listen to this music, to bring the community together for, this one night. And it's kind of crazy that this kind of movie shows what's happening over 24 hours to get this juke joint started, right? They go to the Asian people's to get the banner
Market.
made, to get the food.
Yep.
Okay, you guys, how much catfish do you guys got? Okay, we need 10 pounds of catfish. Okay, so it's crazy just to see that, like, when you're trying to make a party, they're still doing the same thing that we're doing now.
Yeah, that last minute scramble for supplies.
That touches on, when you're doing music, there's an aspect of fun, there's an aspect of business.
Yep.
Everything that it took to partner with people, all the people they had to go convince and make deals with. The piano player, he couldn't
Slim.
just pay him because he said, hey, I got a gig that's going to pay me for 10 years.
And that's going to be there.
So you can't pay me to miss that gig until he did what?
Gave him that Irish beer.
The Irish
He
beer.
found his vice. Right?
He said.
Yeah.
In which he could have said no.
Yeah.
But he chose
that
vice.
Yes.
He said, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to just drink myself. So that part of a deal, which was also a little bit of manipulation.
Yeah.
But he did find out, what do you want? Oh, that's what you want? Cool, I got a bunch for you. And then they get there, and then the one guy who couldn't pay for everything.
Yes, with the wooden nickels.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And now you get into the business side, where we can't afford to give away this, or we're not going to have this anymore. But then the brother said, no, man, we got to get people here. So it's that fine line of satisfying your customer and keeping your doors open.
Right.
Right?
Low-key, that scene where that man, he just spent, the whole week working his ass off for 2 wooden nickels, and Smoke couldn't find the compassion to go ahead and, just give him that full glass or whatever. It was Stack and...
Smokestack.
No, the woman.
Oh,
I keep forgetting her name.
It's Stack's wife.
Yeah. Oh, Smoke's wife. Smoke's wife.
We need a cast of characters pulled up.
Yeah. But they were kind of like, no, man, like, this is, we got to be here for them. So it is a fine line, but it kind of did break my heart too, because I mean, Jim Crow era, people are still picking cotton. I think a lot of people don't realize that slavery is abolished, but there's still cotton to pick. There's still crops to tend to. And these people are still breaking their backs for
infrastructure is still
for
there.
mere sense. Exactly. And so here they are at this sanctuary, and you want to turn them down? That's kind of fucked up. So I don't know.
It goes back to a conversation that's relevant today. When you think about that piece to now, where you do go into certain shops, and it's relevant in the Black-owned businesses where people ask for discounts. And it's like, I'll go out of business if I give my entire community a discount.
Right. That's
right?
true.
So that, I think, was in that message as well, to where the community helped build this, but the community was also asking for discounts. And it's a fine line of, okay, how do I satisfy my customers by also turning a profit?
Right.
Right? So that's the other balance of it as well, is what do you do? Is there a fine line? And do you lose your customers because you're not, I guess, empathetic to the culture and the circumstance of your customers that come from your culture? But what is the fine line of running a business and supporting your community?
And to go in there,
That's a good angle.
you talk about the choice, because they couldn't get that type of money. They go out. He tells the girl, Haley Stanfield's character, I think Mary, hey, go outside. They got money, because remember they showed the gold. He was like, they got money. See if what they want. See if they're really okay.
They gonna come spend the money.
Yeah, because now you made that choice. Like, that money that these people spend is not good enough. We need to be even more gluttonous and try to get their money.
Greedy.
There you
That's
go.
the sin.
And try to get their money.
Didn't see that one. In which you did what? You invited.
You invited it because you wanted to get that money.
You wanted more money.
Mm-hmm.
You had to make the choice to go back to what you were saying.
You lift that rock up. I didn't see that one in the movie. That was a good one.
Yeah, I forgot about that part. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, but like the juke joint and like that scene with the music, that took me away. Are there any other moments in the movie that kind of took your breath away like that?
There definitely is one for me, I think, towards the end of the movie where they actually kill the vampire. It's just visually striking to me where the vampire dies and you have the fire and you have the sunset in the background and him holding Sammy, like trying to protect him, like holding him like, I'm going to protect you, like you're good, Sammy. Because and towards the middle of the scene, Smoke was like, this is not the life for you. I need Smoke. Smoke was like, there's all this bad stuff. You still have this innocence in you. I got to protect you. So you kind of see Smoke at the end of the scene after they're killing the vampire. You see that he's just looking at the fire, but he's holding it and trying to still just protect it. He's like, hey, get out of here. Take the car. Get back to the church. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that scene and that whole scene just kind of him, we started at that in the beginning scene. Now we're getting back to what really what happened to him getting to the church.
And that's right after he was being like baptized by the
Yo,
vampire.
that was crazy to me because he was just dunking him and dunking him.
So
And I'm like,
it's a fresh start for him after that.
Yeah.
It's like you survive this.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
You get to go back
Facts.
and you make that decision and he becomes a buddy guy.
Yeah, right.
I think what really caught me the most, biggest shock, not more a shock, but I think something that's really relevant today is disobedience towards your parents. The father clearly had a plan for his son.
Yeah.
And a plan of success. And he told him, this is what's going to happen, son. And we got to remember, Sammy's father is the brother of Smoke and Stack's father.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they came from the same cloth. One brother had his demise in that world, and the other brother went to the Lord and church. So clearly, Sammy's father saw what happened to his brother and his nephews and tried to keep his son away from it, but the son refused and intentionally rejected his father's leadership. And then he went out and found it on his own, came back, and still rejected his father's leadership, right? So a lot of times our parents tell us like, hey, don't do this, do this. And I think all of us at some point in time said, I'm gonna do what I want to do, right? And then when you did it and you're like, damn, they were right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that really kind of stuck with me, was like, sometimes we can get in that abundance of we know everything and someone else has already went through that fire and they're telling us this is what's about to happen. And sometimes we do just kind of have to say, yes, the stove is hot. I get it. I don't need to touch it.
Right.
Right. So that's the biggest thing I got from it, because it started and ended with him and his dad telling him the same thing.
Right.
And he still refused it.
Let go of that guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like that, like in any good movie, contrast does very well. The contrast of their parents, like one, being man of God, the other one
Being
not so
street
much.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He beat our ass, but he didn't mean it.
Yeah, and then even after, I don't know if it was Smoke or Stack, when he was telling Sammy, he was like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. He gives them the other thing. Yeah. He was like, this isn't for you. This isn't what you're supposed to be doing. I've done this. And still.
Now, just on this topic, did we hear the part what Smoke and Stack say they did to their father? They killed their dad?
Two different stories, right?
Yeah.
It was Smoke who said that he protected Stack
Mm-hmm.
and killed the father. I think that's what I got, but I don't know if there was any differentiation.
Okay.
The dad was beating them.
Yeah.
And
The dad was beating them.
And one of them killed the dad.
Yeah. One of them woke up after getting beat by the dad.
Yeah.
Waking up to his brother burying the dad. Halfway
Stack
done
was
burying the
woke up?
dad.
It was Smoke who was burying the dad.
Okay, yeah.
Once he took that red and blue hat off, I didn't know who the fuck who was who.
I didn't know who was who.
Stack is the red, Smoke is the blue.
Yeah, but then like they took the hats off halfway through the movie, and I got all confused. Who's who?
But it was kind of
help me.
I got to give a lot, credit to Michael B. Jordan to playing those two contrasting characters. But you could see Smoke was somebody who was a protector. He was stoic. He was probably the person who was
The
supposed to be the
thinker.
man of the house. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And Stack is the one getting into trouble, doing all this. He's kind of like, you know,
He-
trying to,
He had the
you know, hey,
charm.
yeah,
The
he got the
reactionary.
charm.
He had the
He's-
reaction personality. Yeah.
And so, you know, even Smoke, you know, told Sammy, because he's like, hey, watch Stack because he don't know how to watch his own back. You know what I mean? You know,
That's
he's going to get himself
right.
in trouble. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So it's,
I forgot about that part. Yep.
it was crazy to see that because you have these two opposite characters. You know, you could say, you know, Smoke is good and maybe Stack is bad, but I don't even see it that way. I see two characters who are, one with Sammy is like, hey, Smoke was like, I want to protect you. Stack is like, hey, man, boy, get out there, make that money. We're going to put you out. You know, go ahead and sing these songs. You know what I mean? Two different perspectives about what Sammy's talent in and what to do with it, you know, and what to do with his life. So I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah. So let's talk about Sammy, because he basically was the main character of the story, in a sense, because he was who the vampires wanted. So yes, he had a talent, but it was also a gift. He had the gift of bringing spirits into a space when he is singing. He's able to transcend time and space with his singing. So he was basically, if you remember at the beginning of the movie, Annie, the magic woman, I looked it up, her name's
Yeah,
Annie.
I was
Yeah,
going to
yep.
say, I looked it up.
She was talking about in the very beginning how music was used to kind of like pierce the veil between life and death. And she named 3 groups of people. She said the West Indians, she said the Choctaw Native Americans, or the fire protectors, I think she called them, and then the Irish Feely. And that's what I missed in the beginning. I was like, who was the first group? She said it was the Irish. So when you think about it, she kind of set up the whole story of how this was going to play out in this movie. You have 3 distinct groups of people. So you have the West African, which are now the African Americans in Mississippi. You have the Choctaw who chased away Remick, the Irish vampire, and then you have Remick singing his Irish jigs when he was starting to like grow his fellowship, as he called it, of vampires. So I really loved how, like, in the beginning, Annie was talking about, you know, certain people with certain levels of talent and gifts can conjure up spirits. And so that person was Sammy. Remick was a vampire who was basically trapped as an immortal on Earth who wanted nothing more than to see his ancestors again and to tell their story. So when he saw Sammy, he was like, I can use you. I can use you. Let me convince you to be part of my group. And then, of course, the Choctaw Indians, where we basically just saw one scene of them chasing away
Yeah, they were
Remick.
out.
I would actually like to see more like that background, maybe like a prequel.
Oh, yeah, I would have loved
Yes.
to see more of that.
Yes.
The Choctaw Indians and how they had to deal with, you know, maybe there was a fellowship even before then of the vampires, and maybe they dealt with them. But I would love to see like a, you know, prelude.
Yeah, because it seemed like the Native Americans were like, I don't know, like what their role was to capture the vampires. Like that's what they knew they were vampires.
Yeah.
And like, hey, we're the ones who are, I guess, either singing or we have some type of powers as well.
Yeah.
To chase them down. Like they were vampire hunters.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
It
what
seemed like they
like.
were
Seemed like-
they knew a lot more
Yeah,
than
than
everybody
they knew.
else did, and I would like to see those beginnings. And like you were saying, when he went to the house, he was like, "Hey, don't let them in. He might look like you, but he ain't you." You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, "Oh, I want to see what was that about. I want to see
Ryan,
more."
where's
Yeah,
the sequel. It has to be one. Just on that
Ryan,
note
come on,
there.
let's go.
It's
I
making
was
money.
expecting more of them. I thought that they were going to come help them
Yeah, later
at
on.
the end
Right.
with that big fight. I was
Right.
expecting them to come and help out, and I thought, oh, they're not coming. So this is about to get real.
Right. So in my head, like while I was thinking about, you know, today's episode, I was thinking about the Choctaw Native Americans, and I'm like, I wonder if Remick was trying to charm them like he charmed everyone at the juke joint, and the Choctaw saw right through it, and
Yeah.
he couldn't. He just couldn't convince them that he was someone that they
I can
already
see
knew
that.
he was.
I definitely, because you know, history of Choctaw and also Cherokee and Native Americans, they already have their community and they already have it. So I would kind of see like he would be trying to do that, and then they're like, "No, we have."
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Would help. They
kinda
see him as a
like,
white devil.
yeah.
Yes. The Choctaw probably had their own Sammy,
Yeah.
which attracted Remick the vampire.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what is this? I'm seeing ancestors and people from the future and the past
Yeah.
dancing around this party or whatever, this gathering. Let me go. So the Choctaw probably had their own Sammy.
Correct.
And they're like, no, we're protecting him. We're going to chase you out because we know exactly what you are and who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm curious to see like if there would be like a prequel to kind of explain like,
I'd be down for it.
that whole
Yeah.
thing.
I do want to give a shout out to the guy who played Sammy because that was his first movie. And so it's just for that to be his first movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he like, I guess he played guitar and like stuff like that and performed music before live, but has never done like been acting in movies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's great to see that he got that chance, and how he portrayed that character was really great. And to go even more into that, I felt like we were like viewing from Sammy's eyes, you know what I mean? Seeing like all this happening, and then also just his innocence, and then he starts to do the music and you see this pan around, and then you see the vampire and say, hey, I want you. You're like, oh no, you know what I mean? That's Sammy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of crazy just to see that character all the way from that beginning and then wraps around to the end.
So we're pretty much talking about this very surface level, but there's a lot of people that were looking kind of for symbolism and maybe metaphors and allegories and stuff like that throughout the movie. What do you guys feel about the vampires symbolizing cultural appropriation in this movie?
I kind of jump in because I want to segue that to something else that I saw too. When it comes to cultural appropriation, it's an understanding of culture is community, right? It's something that communities do together, and that's what we have in common, right? Once you put culture to the marketplace and you start to sell your culture, then the policing of your culture, you kind of lose that range.
Yeah.
It's because once you start selling culture, you are now inspiring people and you're introducing your culture, right? Like, hey, this is how we dance where I'm from, right? Now, if you're selling it, you kind of want people to dance like that too. That's how you sell it.
Yeah.
If I make a song, I want all you guys to sing my song the exact same way. So if I made a song and someone from Asian descent sings my song, how can I then police you to not be inspired by my song?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can pay for it, you can listen to it, but don't you be inspired from it. Totally different conversation, right? So, and then there's a conversation of like, oh, you got to give back and show honor. There has to be an education to do that. If I was just inspired by talent, I don't know the 300 history of where you came from. All I know is this 3-minute song you just gave me that I like.
Right,
I have
right.
no idea of the historical context of how you even got to make that song. All I know is the music sounds good. It makes me feel good. I like it, which I thought that's what you wanted. But then you get to that point where, am I even allowed to be inspired by it? And then you get your fine line in there. But what I got more out of it, the cultural appropriation, wasn't that. It was more so when Sammy was in the car, I think with Stack, and Sammy sung for the first time, right? So we're talking about cultural. Cultural isn't just race, it's lifestyle. Sammy had a lifestyle that was totally different than Stack's. 2 different cultures in the same car. Sammy started singing. And Stax did what I normally do when I hear an amazing voice.
Ooh.
Right?
Boy, you
an
got something there.
idea start blooming, and then he came up with a business plan right then and there because he heard Sammy sing. Right? 2 different cultures, 2 different ways of life. Right? Was Stack appropriating Sammy's culture?
Interesting.
Right? Because it's 2
Or
different
was
cultures.
he exploiting
Or was
Sammy?
he exploiting Sammy's, which is what cultural appropriation is exploiting someone else's culture.
Wow.
So he saw Sammy as a dollar,
Yes.
as money. The family went out the window. He was like, I can make money with you. I don't care what happens to you or anything.
He said, boy, we going to make some money
We
off
gonna
of
make
you.
some money off of you, right? That's when my antennas went up, because that would have been my reaction. Instantly, if I heard a young kid with an amazing voice and raw talent, I'd be like, oh my goodness, bro, let's do something, right? So that is what kind of sparked with me, which Stack was inspired. He heard Sammy's song and got inspired. So you cannot police. Once that music goes out, you cannot control who gets inspired and what they want to do after they hear that music. Because
I definitely agree on that point, but I think also Stack was influenced about so you have Sammy who's always been here, but Stack fought in the wars, been in Chicago. He's seen the business model, like you were
Yes.
saying, right? Now he comes back and he's saying, ching, ching, I make money off, like I can exploit you because his culture was not just being there. His culture is making money in Chicago. And so
Hustling.
he's like, okay, how we going to roll the dollar bills now? Because there was like a small scene when they're looking at the numbers and there was like, oh, how much is to make some real money? It's like maybe about 3 months or blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. So they're getting that mindset from how they learned from Chicago. So I think it's that culture also that you were saying, but also the influence
Yeah.
of when they were in Chicago.
Yeah. Because
That's what
they didn't pay Sammy.
Yeah, and then that's kind of going back. Yeah.
Right? You didn't pay him. And he was the cigar.
I never seen any money
So
change.
Yeah,
that
that's
is
right.
clear exploitation. I took advantage of this artist who brought all these people in here, and clearly people are going to come back because of Sammy, and you didn't pay Sammy.
Ooh.
So
Sammy was happy to be there.
So when you say the cultural appropriation from the Irish, Sammy was getting exploited before they even showed up.
Oof. Ouch. That's deep. Honestly. Yeah, I didn't look at it that way. That's crazy.
Yeah, and then that Chicago influence, I was going to say that kind of goes back to the guy that came back paying with the wooden nickels.
Yeah.
It's like they learned about business, and then that changed the way they thought about people.
Yeah.
And seeing them coming back, forgot where they came from. They saw this guy. He's no longer, he's whatever
a
he
number,
can
not
pay.
person of the community.
Yep.
Whoa, that's a good point too that you bring up. And I remember thinking to myself when I guess it was Smoke that was talking about, no, he can't pay with wooden nickels type of stuff. I was thinking like, how much trouble did they get to where they had to come all the way over here? They seemed so desperate. They seemed so desperate to make money. Maybe they lost everything in Chicago. Maybe they're in fear of their life, which I guess they are because they fucked around with the two mobs, right? The Irish and Italian mob or whatever. And yeah, that was my first thought. I'm like, damn, how desperate are you for money to where you can't just take a 30-cent debt off of this one whiskey, you know?
I was going to say, I think they were kind of from the run for Chicago because it kind of seemed like they stole the Irish beer.
They had to get away.
Stole that whiskey.
Yes.
And then, they also probably, it seems like they were the type to do some rich, quick schemes. So they were in Chicago scheming that shit up.
Yeah.
They had that bag of money to buy that juke joint because that's what they were doing in Chicago. You know what I mean? So they're like, okay, we'll buy this spot. We'll sell. How much profit can we make off of this beer?
That's right. That's true.
And also introducing this Irish beer, this imported whiskey to
Italian
all this
wine.
The wine,
to this new population that don't know about this stuff. He takes the whiskey, he drinks the beer, and he's like, "Oh, what is this? Oh, we got a moneymaker here." You know what I mean? So it's like they brought that Chicago scheming over to the, like you said, the devil they know. You know what I mean? To their plantation.
Wow.
Now, even on that point, were they exploiting their own community by coming back?
Whew. I mean, yes. Yes, they were.
Was it exploitation because you are coming back and you are creating a space? Because they did talk about it, Annie. This is a space for them to, after they're done working, they need to let their hair down and relax and have a good time. But at the same time, you can have a conversation about what liquor and beer is, and that's what you're selling them.
I think it's a hard one because I feel like it was a scheme. It was a get rich scheme. You know what I mean? In 3 months, we're going to take this and then we're going to probably leave. You know what I mean? But in the history of like Black folks, we've had to scheme and make money because there was no other way. And then say, hey, we're gonna have a good time with our people because we know if we have a party with a different culture, white people, they're going to arrest us. They're going to do this. Let's just do us. Just have a community party. Like, right? I'm just going to hang out with my friends. And by then, we're going to get our beer. We're going to get beer. We're going to get drinks. We're going to get food and just party with us. I don't know if that's exploitation to a point.
Well, compared to this, there was literally just a few houses, a few structures in this movie. You had the church that anyone can walk in. It showed Sammy walking in without any permission. I can just walk in this space. Then you had the shops in which there was one side of the street. Some people couldn't go. Some people could. Right? So there was a side where you couldn't even have permission. It was just, you just couldn't go there. Then you had, I think it was Smokes in Annie's house.
Yep.
Right? And the baby passed, and they had the situation outside. She had that home. And then you had the mill house or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the old sawmill or
Sawmill, yeah.
The juke joint,
Mm-hmm.
in which people came in, but evil had to be invited in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you have all these spaces of like, these spaces are created, and you can come in. Some people got to be invited in the type of energy, but you had the church, and he was telling him, the music invites sin. So think of every sin that was committed in the juke joint. A lot of adultery.
A lot of sin,
Yes.
yeah.
There was murder.
Greed.
There was greed. There was gluttony.
Gluttony, the guy that passed out with the wine.
Mhm.
Cheating, the
It was-
gambler with the loaded dice.
The loaded dice.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was a
Okay, I
lot
forgot
of
about that
sin
one.
Yeah.
going on in this one space.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's just that context of it, of like these spaces that you intentionally go into. And I think that's what the dad was telling him. You are intentionally walking in to a place of sin.
Mhm.
And you're leaving a place without sin to go do that.
Right.
Right? And that's what Stack and Smoke were doing. They were just going from place to place, committing sin.
That's true.
True.
Facts.
That was a good point.
Ooh.
I didn't think it like that. That was a great point.
And then the dad also said you're playing in places where you're inviting the devil, and one day the devil's going to follow you home.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess it did.
like
followed you.
60 years later.
Yes, 60
It
years
continued
later.
to follow him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
that's facts. Wow. I love how you broke down the different places and what was allowed and what wasn't allowed, because that literally, I mean, taking the supernatural out of it,
Mhm.
that's how it was back then. And that's one thing I really admired about this movie, is that it was pretty accurate as far as like Jim Crow laws,
Mm-hmm.
Segregation, the life of, a white person, a black person, an Asian person that could kind of like straddle the line. And then you have a person that's white passing, that faced discrimination as well. And I want to shout out this one YouTuber. I was telling you guys earlier, Lady Genevieve, I believe her name was. And her little breakdown of the movie, she was talking about how the Irish and the Choctaw Indians actually have a very close relationship. And that's why Ryan basically chose those two groups, I think, to represent in the movie. So yeah, even taking it to that. And I mean, I'm so glad that I questioned why an Irish person, why the Choctaw, because it made me want to learn more about it. And this is real history that we're talking about. So that's really dope. Let's talk about another aspect of the movie where music is symbolic. So we were talking about cultural appropriation earlier. Did you guys know that the first song the three vampires were singing when they were first there was actually a blues song? The Pick Poor Robin Clean. It was actually a blues song, but they were singing it very like bluegrass, or like very
folky.
very folky, very like no soul. And I think that's one reason why a lot of people are like, okay, this movie is about cultural appropriation, because these white people were singing this black song with no soul, and they wanted the soul. They wanted to convert everyone to their side. They wanted to turn everyone else into vampires so that they can get their soul, or however. So I think that's another angle why like some people thought that it was about cultural appropriation, being culture vultures and things like that. So I just wanted to bring that up, because I remember after the movie I was like, what song were they singing? That was kind of like, that was kind of catchy. And it turns out it was a blues song that they just, for lack of a better term, whited out.
I thought it was a funny song of like,
go ahead.
I said when they were singing it, just beyond all that, like just the double meaning of picked him
Poor
clean,
Robin
picked poor Robin clean is
Yeah.
like they ate him, they picked
Yes.
they picked him clean off the
Yeah,
bum.
facts. So I mean, if you really wanted to get deeper, you definitely could with this movie. Or if you wanted to keep it surface, like the surface story, it satisfies both types of thinking. So shout out to Ryan Coogler for that.
What genre does this fall in? Was this a drama, an action, or a horror?
I don't think it falls into like
It was listed as a horror.
Yeah.
And the thing was, the horror didn't even start until like the back half of the movie. You know
The
what I
third
mean?
act.
And Ryan Coogler said he was always a big fan of, horror films. So when he, got a chance to make this film, he really wanted to dive into it, but just also the musicality and music. And then he got deeper into that. And then, because he's the writer director, it's that vision of like, how can I bring these stories together? And I think he did it very well, because in another movie, this could be very jarring to be going 30 to 45 minutes just introducing characters and maybe thinking it's a period piece, and then all of a sudden vampires, you know what I mean? And then so like, but he did it very well and very seamless, where I'm like, what? That's crazy. You know what I mean? But I thought the movie, like overall, just how it transitioned, and I really saw like in my head, act 1, act 2, act 3, and then final from going to the after credits, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, okay, this movie was made very well.
Let me introduce another concept to you guys, because I was trying to research a few things, like what are like some good talking points about this movie. And the idea of religion and spirituality, we're talking about like the Christian religion being represented, of course, preacher's son, and then, the pastor in the church. And then you have the vampires, where you can kind of almost look at that as another religion, almost like another, like a cult or a culture. And then you have music, you have the blues, which some people could look at as a religion all its own. Because like, how spiritual was it when he sang, and then he conjured up like the past, present, future, different cultures and stuff like that. So how do you guys feel about the theme of music being its own religion?
I think it's true. Religion, now this isn't like law, but it's a way of life. It's teaching you like, these are the practices in which to live amongst people in harmony. A lot of religions kind of just root in that. So when you do music, you're not doing music for yourself. You're doing music for other people to join you together in a space. And you do not decide who comes. As an artist, no matter what artist you are, whether you make music or you paint or you sculpt, once you finish with that art, you do not determine who enjoys it. You appreciate anyone that does, no matter where they come from. You don't get to choose your fans. You don't get to turn a dial and go, I want this type of fan who's this old, who does. No, it's whoever shows up. And they say, hey, I like that. Right? So it's understand, like, you have no control after that once you put it out. And you just have to let that energy come, but you don't choose the energy. It could be good energy, it could be bad energy. It could be somebody coming to say, ooh, I like it. It could be someone coming to say, I want to take it. Because it's so great. When music gets that great and it creates that many opportunity and it brings that many people in, you have people who come to enjoy it and be inspired, and you have people who come in, want to take advantage of it, monetize it, or take it from you and use it for their own self relax, because it's such a powerful thing, such a powerful culture and religion.
And think about how many musicians out there have huge fan bases that are practically their own religion.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like a BTS, they have what they call an army. Rihanna has an army.
When they say move, they move.
Yeah, Beyonce has
It's
a
your
beehive.
congregation. They have a congregation.
Yeah.
All congregations.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Can we name anybody else?
Everything is a cult.
Yeah. Well, think about this. How many fans become the artists? How many people change their hair to
Their
look
life.
like the
Yeah.
artist?
Yeah.
How many dress like
Change
the
the way they
artist,
talk.
right?
Yeah.
Which you're
How they
supposed to
dress.
do in your religion. You're supposed to. God made us in the vision of
Himself.
Him.
Yeah.
So people are becoming what they idolize,
And they're called idols.
and they're called idols.
That's right. In K-pop, they're called idols.
And you idolize them. So it is a religion in itself, where one religion, you're idolizing and honoring a God and following their way of life. And then if you dive so much into music, you become idolizing that, not realizing that that's their job. And they're just doing that on camera. And they go home and they something else, but you're living that life 24/7. And they're just doing it to make money.
And I definitely think with the idolization and everything, we have people who do music and they're artists, and then we have icons, right? And I feel like it's that next level where you were saying, some people do music and it literally pierces. You think about the history of music and the future of music, thinking about Prince, Michael Jackson, Kendrick Lamar, probably right now, Beyonce. These are the type of names where you listen to their music, Rihanna, and you're like, you feel like the history of where that came from, the beats, the sampling, all that. And they're not just artists. People look up to them as icons, you know what I mean? And so I think that's also the crazy part about it too. With music, it's not just community, it's culture, it's all these different things. And we follow them and we want to be like them and we want to hear the music and just how talented they are. It's just kind of crazy to see that with Sinners. And he had that talent. There was other people who were doing music, but he was that special one. He was going somewhere. You know what I mean? So I kind of see him like becoming the icon, which he became.
Yeah. How did you guys feel about that time jump between Sammy driving away after, you know, going to his dad's sermon the next morning, driving away in the brother's car with his broken guitar, and then time jumping 60 years later? How'd you guys feel about that time jump?
I think that was like the defining moment of choice, where even though Sammy went through the worst day of his life, he still chose that life. I almost got killed by vampires because of this music. But guess what? This is what I was meant to do, which can touch into some people are built for it. And I think that's what Sammy was telling his cousins, Smoke and Stack. No, I am built for this. And that may be what he was telling his dad. You might not be built for this, Dad, but I am, which is why I held on that guitar. And clearly he had a successful career. If he was still doing music at this bar, and it clearly showed he was successful, that he was actually meant to do it. So that's that part about it too. It's like, hey, it may have been the worst day of my life, but that might have inspired him. Like if I got through this, I can get through anything.
Yes,
That's absolutely nothing worse than what just happened on that day.
Yeah, definitely.
Wait, did he not say it was also the best day of his life at the end?
Well, they're saying that
I remember someone said that.
Before the sun went down, something to that effect. Like before like all the mayhem broke loose, that was the best day of his life.
Yeah.
I think Stack said that, leaving
Or
the
maybe
bar.
it was him, yeah.
Like, I think the last time I was happy was when
last time
I
I was
saw
free.
the sun with my brother. Yeah,
Yes.
That was the last time. Yeah.
Did you guys peep how he named the club that he was playing at Perline's?
I didn't see that.
Oh,
After
no.
the woman that he got a little frisky with,
His
the married
first-
woman.
his first one.
And also his
at
club
the
was
end.
and it said Chicago, Illinois.
And he
1992. Chicago.
Okay, yep. So he lived out his dream.
Yeah, he did.
He actually went through it.
Mhm.
Right? And that's I think another part when you meet people from different cultures, like we all know our cultural backgrounds, but you never know what someone else has went through, even if they got a smile on their face. People went through things, but they were built for it, right? I'm an African American. I was born here. There's people who walked here.
Yeah.
People whose parents, when I first heard that story of someone telling me, no, I walked here from South America. I was like, whoa, wait, that's not close. That's
No.
far, right?
Yeah. People crossed oceans.
Yes,
like
Yes.
right?
People
the
swimming
unknown
over here from the
depths.
Cuban Missile Crisis. People swimming over here
swimming.
to
Yeah.
escape
Swimming.
Cuba.
And when I hear those stories, I'm like, wow, you were built to do that. Some people can't even fathom to walk across the street to go do something for themselves.
That's so true.
Right? So when people go through things and they overcome it, it's like nothing can stop me if I went through this. And that's kind of how I feel about certain things when I hear stories like that. Like, whoa, if you went through that, I know you can deal with a lot more things, and other stuff is just frivolous. So I think once Sammy drove back to the church, he had that moment of like, do I quit? But I'm here. I went through it.
Yeah.
I'm alive.
Yes.
Why quit? And I made it. And he said, now I'm going to Chicago. Chicago ain't no worse than what I just went through.
That's true. They said it's just like here, but with buildings instead of trees, or
I guess
buildings
it felt
instead of
like
grass.
it's nothing's going to compare to what I just what just happened here. So I could take Chicago by storm.
Boom. There it is. That's true. And it's like, yeah, a vampire wanted me. I must be good.
Yeah.
Validation.
And so, really quick, I wanted to touch on Remick the vampire and his Irish roots. Once again, shout out to Lady Genevieve. Let me make sure I'm getting her name right. And she was basically talking about, the British occupation of Ireland, the Irish famine, where the British soldiers stole all the Irish's food supply to feed their soldiers, and which resulted in a lot of Irish people dying. And that kind of explains why he was telling Sammy while he was dunking him in the water, I want you to tell my story for me. Because the Irish were an oppressed people too. They just weren't oppressed here. They were oppressed in Great Britain, and they went to the US, and then they got further discriminated against here. So we were talking a little bit outside where it's like, the vampire was the villain, yes, but he was like the tragic villain. Like he probably didn't ask to become a vampire, and him recruiting people by killing them and making them into vampires isn't really, I'm sure, what he wanted to do with his life, with his afterlife. But that's the situation that he was put in.
Yeah.
So I'm really thankful that people like YouTubers like that actually broke it down and explained like why they chose an Irish man to be this villain, and what his needs were, why he was wanting fellowship so badly. And lost my train of thought. I was going to have
Can
another
I add
point
on that?
Yes, please.
So we're talking about circumstantial evil.
There
right?
we go. Yes.
Circumstantial evil and just natural evil, like I'm just an evil person. Have you all seen Joker?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
One thing I got out of that movie was the system failed him.
Oh.
He was trying to be a good person.
Yes, he was
but
trying to get
the
help.
system continued to fail him, which turned him into circumstantial evil.
Yes.
In which his evil, he had good intentions, but the psychopath and that kind of took over. And I kind of feel like that's what happened to a lot of people in this movie. Stack and Smoke never had a chance.
Yeah,
Oh.
big time.
So they became circumstantial evil because of the relationship they had with their father. And that turned them into that. Same thing with Remick. Circumstantial evil. He was oppressed. His people were oppressed and stolen. So how do you react to that? And that reaction can look like evil, but the end goal could be freedom. And that's kind of what he was saying, was like, hey, we're about to do something that might be evil, but it's beautiful on this side. And it's kind of hard to see beauty on the other side of evil.
Holy shit. This is going to be a reel. We're going to clip this. This right here is going to be a reel.
But just imagine that. Imagine someone
my
said,
gosh.
hey, step on this glass with bare feet and everything will be fine. That's kind of what he was saying.
Yeah.
Walk through that fire and you're going to look beautiful after it.
Go after that lion.
Yeah. Go chase that lion
Yeah.
and, everything will be
Wow.
fine. Right.
Oh my
and that's
gosh.
the relationship. That's kind of the messaging I was hearing from.
And then I got to give a big shout to the guy who played Remick, Jack O'Connell,
Great
who
job.
Amazing.
was supposed to be the antagonist, but you felt for him. You know what I mean? You're like,
yeah.
You understood him.
you're like, okay, why is this dude charming? And I'm almost gonna let him in.
He was
like,
super charming. He was
why
super
am I gonna be
charming.
like,
He was.
you know
This
what?
guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna walk
come in,
away
man.
slowly
You're right.
in
You're
case you
right.
change your
You know what I
mind.
mean?
I love that line. I'm
Yeah.
using that one day. When
Yeah.
someone turns me down, I'm going to walk away slow.
I love that part. In case you change your mind. And you really were like, they kept the camera on him
He
for
was
a while.
walking
Just,
slow. I was like,
Man.
this dude is hilarious. I love that line.
He played that role so good.
That's
You
right.
know, I got to give good props. Just seeing an actor play that role, and it's hard to. He's probably great for him because he got to play a character that was so nuanced and different, and not just I'm evil. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like,
I'm hungry for blood.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, no, I
Actually.
want this because I want to be part of the community. I want his power so I can get in touch with my community and that got ripped away from me.
Mm.
You know, got torn away from me because of the British and all this different occupations.
Right.
So
right.
it was great to see that. And like you said, there was a lot of stuff in this movie where you could take and with the history and stuff like that if you wanted to go on a dive deep like you did.
Mhm.
Or if you knew it,
Yeah.
if you
Mhm.
if you're a part
Yeah.
of these cultures and you knew your history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I pick
And
up on
definitely,
things.
I heard a lot of people like music historians who were like, it's great that they touched on the Irish and they touched on this and the history of that and the history of blues. And it's just like, there's so much. We could probably have a 2-3 hour podcast
yeah.
session and go on
Definitely.
to different things.
Easily.
But it's just great to have a movie like this I feel like nowadays you don't have movies. Like I said, there's a lot of times in this movie where I just like, dang, he took a chance on that. He did that. You know what I mean? And definitely with Michael B. Jordan playing two people, the twins. That's crazy.
That was amazing.
And just this being shoot on IMAX, beautiful, and just the Dolby sound and everything. Like, I just claps to everybody who's a part of this.
Shout out.
Oh, another shout out to Ludwig Göransson, who also did Black Panther score. He did this score. I think he's like one of the best.
What a team.
Yeah.
Between him, Ludwig, Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah,
They
and
make some incredible
also I
stuff.
think the costume designer, he's had her through all his movies too. I forget her name, I'm sorry.
Wow.
But yeah.
While we're on names, I need to correct myself. The YouTuber I've been quoting this whole time, her name is Lady Geneva with a J. Lady Geneva. So y'all look her up. She's really good. I started following her after this.
Get those follows up.
Yeah. Shoot. I was going to piggyback off of something that you said, but I can't remember. But while I think about that, do you guys have a favorite character out of this movie, or anyone that you think really had a breakout role or breakout moment? I mean, there's a lot, but
everybody's good.
Yes. I honestly, I kind of wish, this movie was over 2 hours long, but I could have easily sat for another hour.
It was 2 hours?
It was
It was
over 2
hours.
I felt like it was shorter than that. It went by so fast.
Yes, because there's so many characters, and I would have easily sat another hour if we could have explored deeper, like find out more about each character, dive more deep into like their relationships. Like, it would have been awesome to see more of Annie and Smoke. Like, you know, we were given the information that they had a child buried in their backyard. They have a history. She practices black magic, and she gives him the mojo that kept him safe this whole time, which in turn kept his brother safe because he was his watcher. And then I would have kind of liked to know more about Perlene and Sammy, like see their relationship. I mean, granted, it was only a 24-hour period that this movie took place in, but it would have been nice to kind of see more.
I would want to see the back history about Marion Stack and the whole mother situation.
Yeah,
there were so many stories, and we're like,
oh my gosh, like where they were just like giving us info, and I'm like, I would love to actually see that, or like, you know, learn more. But yeah, anyway, breakout performance, favorite characters.
I want to say, I think Michael B. Jordan was the best actor. Like, hands down, I think what he did was like amazing. But my favorite character, just for like symbolism, was Annie.
Yes, thank you.
And the reason being was because that was Stack, right? That was made her Smoke.
Smoke was with Annie.
Smoke was with Annie.
Okay, Smoke was with Annie. So when Smoke came back, Smoke went to the gravesite to see the baby, and Annie was there, invited him back in, and said, I was protecting you the entire time. Right? So that is so important, just like identifying as a man. Like, we're out here working all the time. And even when we do wrong, sometimes we got to remember, you have a good woman. Right? And sometimes you don't see it because you have an abundance of things, right? You have abundance of opportunity, abundance of riches. But then you realize at the end of the day, I didn't even ask you to protect me, and you did it.
Yeah.
And then you did it again when you said, if I get bit, I need you to kill me so that I don't kill you. She showed so much selflessness to say, I truly love you. So I'm telling you, if it happens to me, I need you to kill me.
Yes.
Right? And I just thought her role was so important.
Definitely.
And it can get overlooked at a woman's role in your life sometimes. You can kind of take it for granted.
Yeah.
You know? And you can kind of see, like, I don't think he took her for granted. He just went off to the war and took the opportunity to go work and do whatever he needed to do. But when he came home, he was still welcomed in with love.
Yes.
And accountability.
Yeah.
And
It was funny to just go add to that. He was like, because he came in there with a little attitude, because he was like, you know, you believe in all this voodoo stuff and all this protection and all that, and he's talking shit, and then Annie says, but you still got that protection on you, right? And he was like, he was quiet. He was like, and she's like, I've been protecting you this whole time. And I was like, damn, bro. Got you there.
That was an awesome pick. Yes, her role was so pivotal because it seemed like she knew everything that had to do with the supernatural.
She saved everybody's life.
She did.
Well,
She was-
everybody that lived, yeah.
Yeah.
She
Mhm.
hey, no, this is what's happening, guys.
I really liked the scene where she did a garlic test.
Mm-hmm.
Eat this garlic, nation. Let us know you're not one of them. And then when here's one of my favorite characters, Delta Slim.
Yeah.
When he ate the garlic, he started like
Yeah.
convulsing. He's like, no, I just drank too much.
I'm like, oh, don't
Yo.
turn down to nothing.
Yeah, so
bro.
shout out to Delroy Lindo, who's like, I mean, his career, a long-spanning career, great roles, and he was like the comedic relief for me,
Mhm.
Yeah.
for him and Cornbread, but also like his monologue in the car when they picked him up,
Mhm.
and he was just talking about,
Oh, yeah.
you know, he knew everybody on the chain gang, like, you know them, yeah, and he started telling this story, and honestly, and I don't want to blame the theater for this, but I felt like the crispness of the audio wasn't all the way there when I watched the movie, so I couldn't catch every single thing he was saying, but I just knew his story was gut wrenching.
Mhm.
Yeah, the
And,
story was gut-wrenching.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
during his monologue talking about his friend that wanted to take his savings, take the train out to somewhere that ended up getting robbed by KKK, talking about he stole that from somebody and then he got lynched.
Mhm.
Cubby was telling me that in the background you could
Yeah, you
hear
hear the audio.
the
The lynching.
story
Yeah.
happening as it was telling it. And it was crazy. And I learned that at the end of his little monologue, when he started humming that deep hum, that was an improv. That was an improvisation. That wasn't even scripted.
But do you know what that was, though? That was self-therapy.
Oh,
That was
self-soothing.
him triggered by
Yeah.
that moment.
Mm.
And then during that period, that's where a lot of hymns come from.
Mhm.
'Cause
Oh,
you're
yeah.
out in the fields working. I got to do something
Oh,
to change my
Yeah.
reality.
Yes.
And what do you do
Oh.
it with? Song.
yes.
Mm.
So he immediately and just got that out of
Yes.
his head
Mm.
and filled it with what? Music.
Yes.
He felt the music with that space to get it out.
Ooh.
And that's what music is supposed to do. It's supposed to make you forget about your problems.
Yeah.
And that's what the Jew joint did. Everybody came in and forgot that they were sharecroppers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
You know?
mm-hmm.
And he forgot about that moment, one of the worst moments of his life. He
Yeah,
turned it off.
he just
with
started
music.
humming.
He just jumped right into
Yes.
his therapy. And that is
Ooh.
what I saw. And when he was telling that story, I was like, okay, here's a trauma story. And then when he jumped into that, I was like, that's real. Because that is what people would do when you tell a traumatic story. You're either going to cry and break down, but you got a car full of men. He's not going to cry and break down. He's going to psych himself out through music. And he went to that space.
Oh, oh my gosh. Thank you for that. That's power. That made the scene even more powerful for me. Like just hearing the explanation as to why. Because I mean, I felt it. He was humming because he's like, "Ooh, okay, all right, I got it out. I got it out."
I got to get back in the happy space.
But
you
yes,
know?
this is exactly where hymns come from, like you said, and like people, you know, slaves working in the field, they made their own songs to get them
day.
through, you know. So thank you for that. Jeez.
Yeah, that moment, I felt that moment because he was telling a real story, something that he went through, and the reality, like that was their reality of like, we can get killed at any moment for any reason, unjustified.
Someone making all the right decisions.
And I could still be killed.
yes.
But guess what? I still got to get through the day.
Mm-hmm. Oof. Thank you for that, Mac. Who is your favorite?
Oh man. I mean, I was gonna say your character, just his
Delta
his-
Slim?
Yeah,
Delta Slim,
I just wanted to see more and more and more of him.
Yeah. He's like, hey, what do you, Sammy? They're like, Smoke was asking Sammy to go look for Stack. And then Delta was like, oh, is he in there?
yeah.
And then he saw
Yeah, he goes
Mary
in.
and Stack getting it on. And then Delta was like, oh, he
they're
busy.
busy, right?
Oh, he did?
Oh,
Yeah.
he busy. He knew it. He knew he
Yeah,
was
he
setting him
knew.
up for that. That was amazing. Yeah, so your pick was Delta Slim.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, did we get to yours yet?
I think a little bit of Remick was one of my favorite, but
yes.
I think what I could have had more of, which I think these are two characters, but just the chemistry and everything that was happening, just all their lines and their dialogue together. I would say Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld,
Yes.
Mary and Stack, just
Mhm.
like Stack, like not trying to show his emotion, trying to not show that he loved this girl. Also, like seeing her in the train, he's like, "It's a white girl looking over here. She looking at me? Don't pay attention to her." It's like when you see your ex, and you're like, "I'm not even here, bro.
Right,
I'm
right.
not even here."
I love that scene because after she walked away, Sammy was like, "Oh, I thought she was white. Is she white?"
Oh,
and
but the
turns
first
out
thing
she's white passing.
First thing he said, "Are you sure she's white?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the first thing he says that there's a white lady over there, and he says, "Are you sure she's white?"
There, yep, there you
Yeah.
go.
They
And
knew who it could have been. Like,
Yeah.
Just their chemistry, the dialogue between them, like when they were in the juke joint, and they have that dialogue, and that's that serious situation where he's like, "I set you up with a husband, I got you all this, and this is I don't want you around me." He's like, "I'd love you, but I'm trying to protect you. I'm not trying to have you a part of my life because I know my life ain't no good. I know I'm not no good for you." So I thought that relationship and the dynamic of them two, I was like, "Oh, give me more. I mean, my popcorn."
Yeah. And he
Oh
told
my
her to leave the
gosh.
juke joint.
Yeah, he didn't want
When
it.
she first got there, he
Yeah.
said
He
leave.
like, "What are you
So
doing?"
she didn't leave the evil either.
Oof.
He
Oh my
told her
gosh.
leave. But it kind of goes back to why I like Annie is because Mary still was like, I'm here for you.
Mhm.
I don't care about all this other stuff. Like she wanted to be there. She was deeply in love with this man.
Mm-hmm.
So she was willing to go through the evil and go through it all and support these. So these two guys who were sinners had women who really loved who
Yes.
they were and
big
saw
time.
the good in them and tried to support them.
Yeah.
And they both met their demise in this space that they should have never really been in.
Oof. I want to run down the 7 deadly sins, and I want us to name the characters that practice
got it?
these
Oh, that's
sins
good.
in
Yeah,
the
let's
movie.
do it.
All right,
Quick one.
quick. So, pride. Pride is the first one.
Pride.
Might say
Right.
Sammy.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
I was
yeah.
gonna say Sammy too.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was too proud and he didn't want to listen to his dad.
Didn't want to listen to anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't
True.
want to listen to
Yeah,
Smoke.
you're right,
Smoke was
you're
trying
right.
to tell him. He's
Yeah.
like, "Nah,
Yeah.
I'm doing this. I
Mhm.
want to do this." Blah blah blah. So,
Even Perlene said,
Yeah.
I'm married. Leave me alone, little boy.
She was like,
"Dang, I
She's
forgot
like,
about that."
Yeah.
careful, boy, you're going to bite off more than you could chew. Like, oh, that could have been a euphemism for the
Oh,
vampires,
yeah.
too. You're going to bite off more than you could chew. Someone else did.
Miss Perlene, man, she was looking good in that movie.
Oh,
Anyways,
she's-
Perlene.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. The next sin is greed. So, smoke and stack.
that's I think that's more Smoke than. Oh no, yeah, Smoke and Stack.
Yeah, both of them.
Actually, more Smoke, because Smoke was the one that was like really tight with the man who had the wooden nickels. But then Stack was kind of teaching the girl how to negotiate. She's like, I'm going to teach you business, you know?
Yeah.
And then he was a little bit more loose with the money because Delta Slim, he was offering him more.
$40.
Yeah, $40
yeah,
and not
40.
10.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So greed would have been Smoke. Lust, that was a whole lot of people.
Ooh.
Lust.
I'm going to say Perlene.
Perlene,
I'm going to say Perlene
her eyes
because
from the first scene.
Mary was married, but she was actually with Stack.
Mm.
So that kind of made
They had that
sense.
history.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perlene.
Perlene.
Whole married woman.
Yeah, she was.
She chose to be there.
Yeah.
And met this young boy. And she went to the juke joint without her husband.
Yep. He's like, "Your husband here with you?" She said, "Nah." What? Your husband ain't here?
Oh, Perlene.
Yeah,
Whew.
Perlene.
Yeah, Perlene is with us.
Didn't wash or nothing. I said, go ahead,
Oh,
Sammy.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Go
Tell
ahead,
her how
Sammy.
much you like her, Sammy.
Go ahead, Sammy.
Oh my God.
Sammy
Sammy did
said.
the most. Sammy found that button is what was
Hey,
it Stack?
that's what-
Stack
that's
said
what
that he
Stack
found that button,
Oh,
huh?
that boy found the button, huh?
Oh my gosh. All right. Wrath.
Mm.
Wrath. That sounds like Smoke
like-
at the end. Because he was killing all them KKKs.
I
But
don't think that's wrath.
justfully.
though.
Wrath. What? So
Their
Wrath.
father.
Oh,
That's a good one.
yeah.
Father.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wrath.
Yep.
Wrath is intense anger or resentment, often leading to a desire for revenge.
Yeah, because they killed their dad.
Yeah.
So the dad was
Ooh.
wrath.
Mhm.
Wow. See, no one else.
There was nobody in the
Practice
movie
wrath?
that was really
I
like
wouldn't
that.
Not
say
just straight up
defined
wrath.
it as wrath because not all violence is
Yeah.
wrath.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
True. All right. Envy.
That might be the guy that sold them the juke joint. Because you can kind of think racism has a root of envy.
Oh yeah. Oh,
You
that's
know.
that's true.
He was like, "You
Good
boys
point.
really got that money?"
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I was like,
Who you call them
okay.
boys? Oh, it's just
Who you
some
call them
sitting
boys?
around here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, good
And
one.
envious of like, okay, you guys think you all that, huh? All
Mm-hmm.
right.
Hmm.
We're gonna take it right back from
Anybody else we could think? Envy?
there. Envy.
I can't really think of one.
I
What
mean,
you got?
Remick wanted what Sammy had, but I don't know if
I
that would
think
be
he was
envy.
envious.
I don't think it was
Right.
envy.
Because
Yeah.
envious has a
Yeah.
little bit of malice intent,
Yeah.
like
That's
some bad intent
true.
behind it.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
Hmm.
Okay. Good one then. Gluttony.
I think that's everybody that went to the juke joint.
Especially the dude passed out with the wine.
Yeah, like
Oh, gluttony. Delta Slim. He was an alcoholic.
Oh, that's
Oh.
right. Yeah.
Excessive consumption,
Yeah.
especially of food and drink. Delta
Yep.
yeah,
Slim.
Delta Slim.
was
That's a good one.
The
Glutton,
glutton.
Yeah,
Wow.
I agree with that one. That's an
Mhm.
obvious good one.
That's a good one. Yeah.
And the last one is sloth. Lack of diligence or effort, often leading to laziness or neglect. Sloth.
I don't know if this is, but was it cornbread? Because he didn't want to do much of anything.
I was thinking cornbread.
Yo, that scene where he
Yeah.
recruited cornbread and he was like, I'm gonna give you so much money, your wife might put your pee-pee in her mouth. Or something. He's like, don't disrespect my wife. And the wife was like, wait, how much you
How
charge?
Yo, the women were real ones in this movie.
Yeah, the
All
women
All the
did.
women were
Yeah,
real
they-
ones in this
yeah.
They
movie.
had no filter
Filter.
whatsoever.
It's like, no, we doing this.
Dang, yeah. So sloth was cornbread, you guys think?
gotta
No
do
one
For lack
else,
of
huh?
anyone else, yeah, I think so.
I mean, because you know what? Back then, like you said, Aaron, like you had to work hard. You had to
Yeah.
hustle. You had to actually put in the effort if you wanted to survive. So
Yeah.
I don't think we saw a whole lot of sloth there. Hmm.
Now you made me want to go back to the movies and watch this again.
Yeah, when you think of the characters, yeah, I didn't get too many. Yeah. If anything, yeah, it'll probably just been cornbread. And it wasn't a lot either.
No.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yo, I loved his character. He was comic relief too.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was.
Oh, honorable mention to the dude that got shot in the butt. Cause that was a funny
Oh,
ass scene.
yeah.
Hey, I remember you. How you doing? I was doing fine before you shot me in the ass. And then homeboy got shot in the knee just for being
Just
there.
being there, like, nah. Send you on your way too.
Oh man. Oh, I remember the point I was gonna make. I think you were talking about Remick. This is so out of order now, but like you're talking
all
about Remick and when he got chased to the couple's house after the Choctaw was looking for him, he was begging and pleading with empathy to get let in by the KKK couple. But then when he saw the KKK hood, he's like, these people have no heart.
Y'all gotta go.
I'm gonna bribe you with money. Here's my gold. Once again, shout out. I think it was Lady Genevieve again too. Yeah, who was like, you could see he was like trying to plead, like, please, they took my wife. I think he said, like, they took my wife, they killed my wife. Please let me in, please. And then he saw the KKK. He's like, I have money. I'll pay you if you let me in, because he knew that KKK don't have no empathy, no sympathy.
He peeked around after he said, I'm being chased by some Native Americans. And they said, are you sure they're not just some light-skinned ends?
Yeah.
And that's when he was like,
Thank you.
Yeah,
I know what
remember
I
that part.
said. And he's like, oh, okay, I get
Thank
it.
you for that. I
I
forgot
get it.
about that part.
Yeah.
See, so
That's when he saw it and said, yeah, y'all gotta go.
yeah. So again, with like Remick not being, like you said, he's a circumstantial evil. So he still knew right from wrong, and he still can point out who's really good and who's really bad.
That's what Annie said. Annie said the hates, they're not themselves anymore. They're possessed. But the vampires, you are you. You remember who you are. You are yourself, but you're still kind of now in this cycle of other vampires together.
Right.
That's why they were
right.
still talking as if they were themselves.
Yes.
Where like when you think of like the exorcism, no, that's a whole nother being inside of them talking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for that. I completely forgot about that part. Jeez. All right. So, I mean, we've been talking about this movie for long. And I mean, I think we can keep going on and on and on about this movie because it's just so great. And there's so many things that you can pick and dissect and analyze. And you can talk about it on a surface level. You could talk about it on a deeper level. You could talk about it on a historical level. Like, this movie is just crazy. But before we wrap up, do you guys have any closing thoughts when it comes to Sinners by Ryan Coogler? Watch it.
Yeah, definitely
Watch it. I would say watch it.
Watch it.
Go see it on IMAX, biggest screen you can see it on.
Don't see it on
Dolby.
Screen X or whatever
Don't
I
see
saw it on.
40X, like with homie here.
Don't watch
He
it on
got swing.
iPhone.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
Oh my gosh.
But definitely go see it.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go see it a second time just to support, you know,
I
just
agree.
to see it again in a different view now that I've seen it the first time. Because you know, some movies you see it the second time, like, oh, I didn't catch that. I didn't see that.
Yes,
Oh
yes.
crap! Now that I know this part and that part, like I kind of want to see if I can catch some things.
Yeah, it's definitely a see it twice movie.
Yeah,
You know,
Yes.
definitely see it twice to kind of enjoy what you're seeing and then to watch it again to like really like get it all
Mm-hmm.
for some of the things you missed, because there was a lot of nuance in it, and there was a lot going on, and you're trying to understand the movie. Like, I think my closing statements was more so like, we're accountable for ourselves, and we're accountable for all of our decisions. And that was a movie of decisions that people made and didn't make.
Nice.
And also people giving you an opportunity to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And no one walked away.
Oh,
No one. Everybody had an opportunity to not go to that judo.
right.
Everybody had an opportunity to say, no, I'm not going to play. I'm going to go to my other job. You know, the Asian couple could have said, yo, we'll do it, but we're not going to come and be there. Like, here you go. You guys can go do it. Like, a lot of people had an opportunity to not be there. And it's the energy you welcome. You can welcome in positive energy, or you can welcome in negative energy, but you have to actually welcome it in. Right? So that's just most of what I got from it. Is we decide our energy space by who we surround ourselves with. Like surrounding myself with all these cool people.
Hey, here we go. Birds of a feather.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that take. That's an awesome takeaway. Mac?
Oh man, close thoughts. Definitely gonna see it again. Definitely see it in IMAX. Yeah, incredible film. Like, I'm glad. I after seeing it, I knew we were gonna talk about it here. I wanted to avoid watching anything else just to kind of see what everybody else like picked up. And yeah, after this, I'm pretty excited to see it again.
In IMAX this time.
Dude,
because honestly, trying to watch it at an IMAX theater on a Saturday or Sunday, no seats.
Yeah.
Absolutely sold out.
which is great.
Even this weekend. Like, I can't find
Thursday
anything.
at like 4 o'clock.
Yeah, matinee.
Matinee. It's a
Yeah.
great.
If you're going to matinee at IMAX, it's only $20.
Oh,
Yeah, I paid $19.99.
that's a good deal.
But nah, Ryan, you're getting the coins, man. I'm going to
There
go
you
see it.
go.
I go see it 3 times. Might
Shout
go
out
see it 3
to
times.
Ryan and the cast and
Yeah.
like the
Everybody,
writing
man.
and also I was told that, and you guys probably heard this too, he was inspired to write this movie from a story that his uncle told him about growing up in the South. He knew a set of twins, and from there he spawned this story. So I definitely want to dive in and see like how much he did pull from his uncle's story and how much he completely just created out of his imaginative mind. But yeah, thank you guys for joining me talking about this movie. It's wonderful, and after discussing with you all, it makes me super excited to see it again and maybe for a third time. So thanks, guys.